Our speaker today is Adam Lewinberg. He's the president and CEO of Postal Advocate, the only mail audit and recovery firm in the US and Canada. We manage a portfolio of 180,000 pieces of mailing equipment for the largest US companies. Adam speaks and teaches nationally on mail savings and industry trends. He's a former industry co-chair of the Boston Postal Customer Council and Mail Systems Management Association. He is CMDSS and MDC certified. He is a featured writer for Mailing Systems Technology magazines. Adam worked for one of the largest mailing vendors for over 17 years. He was the director of national sales for Presort, tabletop inserters, addressing hardware, software, and green offerings. And Adam was one of the top 5 account managers nationally, working with some of the nation's largest accounts. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Michaela. So we've got a lot of updates that we're talking about, postal updates. We have a rate increase that's happening in July, and we have a mandatory meter migration. We're going to cover both in detail. A lot to cover today. What we're going to go over is the details of these proposed increase. This is a proposed increase now. The final rate we should be notified of those within the next probably week to 2 weeks, because the post office says they're going to give 45 days prior to any rate increase for the notifications. But typically what we're seeing is the proposed rates become the actual rates with very few, if any, changes. So I would expect the rates that we're showing you to be close, really close with very few changes. So how to budget for this increase, some details about the forced meter migration that you're going to need to deal with, what devices are impacted and the timelines, how do you create visibility to the equipment that needs to be migrated, what mail equipment options are available, enterprise online postage solutions, where and why these systems make sense, some right sizing strategies that we could save up to 80%, planning implementation, and then ongoing visibility and control of future migration phases, because there are a few. So we have had the biggest increases in the history of the Postal Service. In the last 23 months, there have been 4 rate increases that have increased costs from 20 to 55%. If you look at these percentages and you compare the previous 10 years, there were more increases in the last 23 months than we had in the last 10 years combined. And the reason for that is letter volumes are dropping fast. People are mailing less. The post office is trying to make up for volume declines with rate increases. There's also an increased number of places the post office has to drop off mail with fewer pieces per stop. And even with COVID, there was a huge correction in mail volumes on the downward side. Very infrequent do volumes go up after there's a major correction, which is we're not even seeing any sort of like upticks in any of the volumes since then. And so the post office is dealing with the reality of higher costs and fewer pieces of mail, and that's what we're seeing here. So first class single piece mail. 5% increase on 1 ounce letters is going from 63 cents to 66 cents. The 1 ounce rate for flats goes from 126 to 135, a 7.1% increase. Postcards are increasing by an average of about 6%. And the additional ounce rate is still 24 cents. So as items get heavier, you'll see the percentages decline, but it's only because the items are getting heavier. The 1 ounce rate still makes up the majority of mail, and you can see the increases from that. Most of the people on this call don't use the single piece letter mail. They use the metered mail rate, and the metered mail rate was created probably about 5 years ago. And it's designed to give extra discounts for people who use either a postage meter or an online postage solution to generate postage stamps. Those rates, instead of 66 cents, are going up to 63 cents, which is a 5% increase for 1 ounce letters. It's still a great savings though. Like when you look at different volumes of mail, if you do $1,000 a year in postage, you save $50. But if you do $100,000 in postage, you save almost $5,000. So the savings adds up. It's good to have metering devices at any places that you have decent volumes of mail, because at some level of postage, they pay for themselves. First class mail commercial. So most mailers who do high volume are using either a pre-sort service to pick up their mail, or they're automating their mail inside their offices through automation equipment. They're getting commercial rates versus the single piece rates. And there's a higher volume of this first class mail commercial than all the single pieces combined. You're seeing on the letters, you're seeing about a 6% increase on the automation letters. On the flats though, look at the first ounce increase. 68.9 to 83 cents, 20.6% increase on that first ounce, 15.7 on 3-digit, 15% on AADC, just huge increases. And this is why we've seen a 55% increase in flats, these types of increases the post office is putting in place. 1 to 2% increases in postcards, and customers still qualify for the IMB 0.003 savings per piece. So what are some saving strategies with first class? So first off, convert your flats to letters wherever possible. Let's say that you send out statements and those statements are 6 to 10 sheets of paper and you're putting them in a flat envelope. Well, it's $1.83 to send that piece out as a flat. If you convert that and fold that into a 6x9 envelope, it goes down to 87 cents, basically cutting your costs in half. If you use automation mail, whether it's through pre-sort services or whether you automate it yourself, the rates go down to 49.8 to 56.1, 50 to 71% savings, just taking those documents, 6 to 10 sheets of paper, and instead of putting it into an oversized envelope, folding it in half into a 6x9. If you use outsourced mail services, they can typically get, through large printers, they can typically get 12 to 14 sheets into a 6x9.5 envelope to drive these savings even larger. First class savings options. These are all your first class savings options, all in one place. So use postage meters to save 3 cents on letters. You go from 66 to 63 cents. Consider a pre-sort service. If you're running over 500 pieces per day or you have one-time mailings over 1,000 pieces at a time, the pre-sort service can get your mail down to 56.1. Automate your mailings in-house. Like if you have enough volume, you to be able to automate mail yourself and you get it down to 49.8 to 56.1. If you're doing heavier weight items, up to 3.5 ounces goes at the same rate. So a single piece rate, that's 3 ounces, is $1.14. If I run it through a pre-sort service, I get the first 3.5 ounces for the same rate as the 1 ounce. It takes it down to 56.1, and the same thing with automation mail. Flats and postcards have the same automation rate categories as letters, so you can do the same thing with those. If you have generic content, consider moving it from first class to marketing mail. Marketing mail, those rates go down to 33 cents per piece. And if you're lucky enough to be a nonprofit, it goes down to 17 cents. So you can see there's lots of options to take expensive mail and cut the cost dramatically. You just have to know these rules. Marketing mail used to be called standard mail. The rates for marketing mail, we're getting about a 6 to 7% increase in letters. Flats, 6.5 to 9% savings on lightweight flats, less than 4 ounces that you can see here. But look what's happening to heavyweight flats. So heavyweight flats, there's 2 ways in which you rate heavyweight flats. There's a per piece rate and a per pound rate. And if you look at these increases, on the per piece rate, the post office is raising that rate by 68 to 136%. And on the per pound rate, they're lowering it by 17.6%. Way too hard for anyone to calculate what that is. We have a handy chart here that you can see. When it's above about 5 ounces, you can see a 5-ounce piece is going to see anywhere between a 30 to 39% increase starting in about a month. So these increases are just astronomical, and it's you could see this the same for first class. I mean, for marketing mail or in for nonprofits. Nonprofits can be even larger, 31 to 45%. It's going to impact a lot of the types of mailings people do. Marketing mail savings options. Use entry-level discounts to move mail closer to its final destination. You get the post office has these things for marketing mail, where if you can move mail to the destination network distribution center or the destination sectional center facility, you can save significant amounts of money. So you basically, for letters, you can save the DSCF, 3 cents is going up to 3.5 cents, basically a 16.7% increase. The post office is giving you more discounts if you can move mail closer. For lightweight flats, if you can get it to the DNDC, the savings is going up, 3%, but there's savings on both of these categories. And for flats over 4 ounces, they're cutting the savings significantly, as you can see here. So a saving strategy for these, just like letters, convert your flats to letters wherever you can. The post office is making a clear message with the 55% increase over the last 23 months that they're going to keep increasing the flats. Flats are not as profitable for them. They want everyone to be doing more letters and less flats because it's just too expensive. Good news on Priority Mail and Priority Mail Express, there's no increases right now. So that's something we can be cheerful of. We could expect that we're going to get an increase in January of next year, but at least we're spared for the next 6 months. There's a new service that I think is great called USPS Ground Advantage. It's a 2 to 5 day delivery service throughout the US. It's 4 ounce to 70 pounds in weight. So if you look at Priority Mail, it's 1 pound to 70 pounds in weight. This goes down to the ounce. And it's one standard service regardless of the weight. And it replaces the former first class package service, which is the reason they can go into the ounce rate, and USPS Parcel Select Ground Service and USPS Retail Ground Service. So these 3 services are now in one. You get $100 of guaranteed insurance that's included in the price, which you can expand up to $5,000 by paying extra. Customer can use the USPS Ground Advantage return service, so if you're trying to get pieces back, up to 80% savings over Priority Mail, 32% savings for items less than 10 pounds, which is probably the most common place that people are using the Postal Service. And there's retail and commercial versions. The commercial versions save 26% over the retail versions. This is trying to compete with UPS Ground and FedEx Ground by having a 2 to 5 day delivery service with similar features, which I think is interesting. Priority Mail was what the post office went against the ground service, but frankly, in many areas, Priority Mail would get faster delivery, especially if things went farther away. This is to be more of a direct competitor. Savings tips. Move to commercial rates, huge discounts over the retail rates. If you look at this chart to the right, basically on your Priority Mail, 15 to 25% discounts based on the weights and the types of pieces it is. Express Mail, 12 to 14%. And this new USPS Ground Advantage, 24 to 33% over commercial, over the retail. And what the post office is trying to get people to not do is don't just run these pieces through your postage meter. If you run it through your postage meter, or you go to the front counter at the Postal Service, or use the post office's free click and ship web-based software, you get the retail rate. If you have a third-party system that generates these 4x6 shipping labels and submits the transactions to the Postal Service, you can get the commercial rates. Multiple vendors are available that can produce these types of labels. The downside is it requires the operator to enter the address to submit it to the post office electronically and create a shipping label versus a meter tape. So if you're just running those, anything that's over 13 ounces today automatically defaults to Priority Mail. So, and people just run that stuff through their postage meter. If you want to get these discounts, you have to have a system and you have to type in the address and print the label. So it's an extra step, but the savings are large. Additional savings tip, moved flat rate envelopes and boxes. So really the point is compare the rates. In some cases, it's less expensive to just do it by the pound, especially if it's local zones. But in many cases, it's much less expensive if you use the post office flat rate item, especially as it's going farther through the country. So it's important to be able to have this stock around and to be able to compare these rates. Convert some Priority Mail to this new Ground Advantage service. It's a consistent service for all weights. Not everybody needs their Priority Mail going in 2 to 5 days and 1 to 3 days for Priority Mail. 2 to 5 days is probably fine for a lot of it. And you can see the savings, less than 1 pound, 58% less. 1 to 5 pounds, 26, 34, 32. It's a great savings option. It basically will have the same delivery objectives as your letter mail, and there's full tracking on it. Commercial examples, by moving items from retail to commercial, you can see 26% on Ground Advantage, 19% overall on Priority Mail, and 14% on Priority Mail Express. The numbers add up. This is just a simple calculator. If you send $10,000 a year in these categories, it's almost $2,000 a year in savings. And solutions to print these labels start about $15 a month. Comparing costs. Most organizations use UPS or FedEx as their prime carriers, and everything goes UPS or FedEx because that's what they're sort of taught to do. That makes sense in many areas, because you're getting huge discounts typically in your contract with UPS and FedEx. But the post office should be considered in other areas, in specific areas, and here are the ones that we think make the most sense. Lightweight items going to residents. So let's say that you're sending something out ground or 2-day or 3-day service. You could see that the price of a 3-day item, I'm just going to use that as an example, that's a pound is $15. Okay, that $15 item, you might get a 70% discount with your contract with UPS or FedEx, but there's a minimum service fee. So no matter what your discount is, the post office, UPS and FedEx say that there's a minimum threshold. If it goes below $10 in your contract, you can't use the full discount. So let's just use $10 as the number. Plus, then the carriers charge 14% for fuel, $5.85 for a residential fee. If it happens to be in a rural zip code, which is 61% of all zip codes, they charge $3.70 to $7.15 as a delivery area surcharges, and then address correction fees. So my point is, no matter what your discount is, that still might be a $15 item, where if you compare that to the priority mail is $7.64, the new Ground Advantage is $5.93, and it includes all those services. So those are the places that the post office makes sense. Our parcel recommendations are prices are going to keep going up faster and faster rates with the growth in shipping space, and that there's only really 3 or 4 suppliers. There's too many factors in calculating a shipping price to rely on only the free carrier provided tools that most people use. So we recommend having a platform that compares rates side by side to make the best decisions by day of week and time of day, to be able to see all your carrier selections in one place. That helps people make the right decisions and save the most money. More and more people are going to be working remotely in the future, and there are cloud-based tools that are needed to support the mail-in shipping tools. These can be multi-carrier that are available to shop for the lowest cost. And some of these platforms can generate postage stamps at on the same platform. All the solutions create efficiency and savings, and then 70% of the postage meters in the United States have to be upgraded by 2024. We're going to talk about this in a sec. And these systems can be a great replacement instead of having to replace all those low-end meters. Some additional rate categories that are changing. First class mail international is going from basically $1.45 to $1.50, about a 5-cent increase, 3%. There are so many different international classes, there's no way to cover it all, so we're just trying to cover some of the highlighted ones that people use the most frequently. Library mail is going up about 7%, media mail about 7%. Special services, certificate of mailing going up 5%, registered 10%. Most common special service people use is certified, which is going up 5%, and then the return receipts that people use are going up another 5%, 5 to 6%. All your permit fees are changing from $290 to $310, and you can see the growth in all the permit fees that you have. So just for a second, let's talk about certified. You can save $1.25, actually I think it's gone up to $1.35 by switching to the electronic version. And if you're if you're doing a lot of certifieds and you're filling out these green cards, and then basically getting in the post office to send back these green cards signed, there's a better way through the electronic methods where you basically can send an item like that, with a custom label or potentially through a window envelope, and and basically electronically print your own return receipts, basically, that show the signature. And then you can also get a manifest of all the items that have been delivered. And then you can also do firm mail books with these tools to give you a manifest of what you're submitting to the Postal Service. Just a lot that can be done. If you're doing a lot of certifieds and you're still using green cards, consider looking at some of the electronic versions. It makes a world of difference. Business reply mail, a lot of people using business reply mail. The fees are going up relatively significantly. The important part about business reply mail is someone needs to monitor the volumes, because to get a business reply mail piece back, it could be anywhere between $1.71 to get a piece back or 66 cents, depending on how you set up the account. But you could pay as little as $310, as much as $14,000 a year in fees. So you have to balance the fee versus the per piece. Most organizations set up their business reply accounts, put them on autopilot, and never look at them again. But that means they could be either paying $1.70 per piece, 71 per piece, and getting huge volumes back, spending tens of thousands of dollars more than they need, or spending way more money in fees than they need, and basically needing to stop paying those extra fees to the Postal Service. We recommend having a way to monitor this to make sure your accounts are set up at the right levels. How to budget for this increase. We have a calculator. You can email Michaela for a copy of it, or you can go to our website. and we at postaladvocate.com, and you can download this tool. And basically, you plug in your mail volumes. It gives you the percentage increase by class, and it can basically set you up for how much you need to budget for the increase that's coming up in July. So if you have a postage meter, make sure that you download the new rates before July 9th, 2023. Here's links to all the vendors' websites. You can also download a comparison guide that will basically have all the charts that we've looked at in this meeting, and you'll be able to see what's available. Okay, we're going to switch gears to a USPS forced meter migration. So the USPS is decertifying all information-based indicia compliant postage meters by June 30th, 2024. New devices must be Intelligent Mail Indicia IMI compliant or will no longer be approved for use. So here's what you need to know. Current IBI devices, so that's your postage, the meter chip that needs to be replaced. It can't be retrofitted. But that means that your device that holds that needs to be replaced at the same time. It is not just a chip update that goes into a unit, it's the entire mail machine needs to be replaced because it will not work. The USPS is doing this to provide a higher level of security and visibility to the mail pieces. So they want to be able to monitor what your mail volumes are, your classes of mail. They want to be able to do refunds for people electronically through the meter, and just basically keep up with their future growth plans, with which a lot of it includes visibility. Metering devices will need to be constantly connected to the internet versus only the time of refill to be compliant. Most new meters already meet this requirement, but it's a problem for many organizations, especially in healthcare and financial services, where they may not want meters on the network. The meter vendors should have mobile connectors you can pay for from them that can connect the meter and avoid being on your network, but they're expensive. So just make sure that you've checked with IT to make sure if it's an issue for meters to be constantly connected from a security perspective. We estimate 60 to 70% of the postage meters in the United States don't meet the standard today. There's probably about 700,000 postage meters in the United States. It's probably about 500,000 of these things that have to be replaced in the next, basically 13 months. So there's a lot to do, and it's a good idea to make sure that you have an inventory of this. We'll talk more about this. These are the products impacted by meter model: Pitney Bowes, Quadient, and FP. So with Pitney Bowes, it's a lot of the lower end systems. The higher end systems basically are going to be compliant until 2027, but they're going to need to be updated at that time. With Quadient, the easy way to think about it is if you have an IX in the model name, like IX1, 3, 5, 7, 9, those were compliant devices. Those IX units were basically produced in the last, started in like about 2 to 2.5 years ago. Anything older than that is probably not compliant and needs to be replaced. And some of the units that didn't have IXs, they were selling up to 6 months to a year ago. So, and in some of those even still today, up to like a few months ago. So it's important to check, does your machine have an IX in front of it? With FP, you're going to have to check. It's a smaller vendor with lower market share, but you're going to have to check with them on their devices to see which ones are compliant. The challenges clients have with this migration is the biggest is the network connectivity issue. Since the meters have to be constantly connected, are there any IT issues, or do you need to get the expensive mobile connectors? The cost. If you replace your current equipment with like-for-like equipment, you're going to spend more money today than you spent on the current equipment. And we're seeing big price increases from all the vendors. Creating visibility to the equipment that needs to be replaced across your enterprise. If you've got lots of locations, does anyone have an inventory of all this stuff? We spend a lot of our time with clients building those inventories because clients have no visibility to where their spends are. You have to collect the requirement on the new equipment. You have to bid the cost between vendors and models, implement the new units, return the old equipment, and then make sure the postage is refunded from the old units. Especially if you change vendors, the postage accounts can't be shared. Only 13 months to make this change, and we think there's about 500,000 devices out there that have to be migrated. This is probably the biggest meter migration in the history of the Postal Service. We've had different meter migrations at different times, like when we switched from filling meters over, at the post office to over the phone. when it went from the phone to having to be over the network, when there were different 2D barcodes that had to be in the meter. But a good chunk of the meter bases had already been made compliant by the time that they had these sort of like forced migration pieces in it. Never has there been a time where like 70% of the industry has had to change equipment in, you know, a 1 to 2 year time frame. So what we recommend is first and foremost, create visibility. Obtain the account numbers for your equipment and leases, your equipment models, see if they match the list that we put on that table. You'll get a copy of this presentation. Know your contract expiration dates. Some of this equipment will be on leases. Some rentals have evergreen clauses and may not expire for certain periods of time. Mail volumes, and this is one of the most important. How much mail are you actually doing at each site to justify, do you need that level of equipment? And what features do you need for feeding, weighing, accounting, etc.? So the methodology that we use, and you can do this yourself, is see if there's any reports or agreements that your mailing vendor provided. Go to accounts payable and do a search from the main mailing vendor names. Request copies of invoices from specific line items from the accounts payable report, and then go deeper to get a higher level of detail on those. Create an account on the meter vendor's websites and then link as many meters as you can to it so you can get the information about their postage spends, fees, contract details. Search the online account for your postage usage, expiration dates, and equipment details, and then call the meter vendors for other visibility items required. If you have over 20 locations with equipment, we'll do this for you for free or no obligation, because it will give us an opportunity to show you what savings are available that we might be able to bring forward. Mailing solutions. So these are your options of mailing solutions. You can get online postage solutions from single sites. You know, those range from $10 to $30 a month. You can look for online enterprise postage versions. Depending on the number of locations, those could be as low as like $1 to $10 per month. You can get standalone postage meters that cost $25 to $100 a month, automatic feed mail machines that are $170 to $300 a month, automatic feed machines with internal weighing systems like mid-levels, and that's $350 to $600, or high volume machines are $700 to $1,300. These are your options in the mail space. It's just a question of tailoring it to fit the needs of each location. We average 56% savings to our clients by managing a right sizing process on this equipment. You can do the same things. These are some of the things that you need to think about. Does the system have an internal weighing system or automatic feeding system? And does it justify the cost? Internal weighing systems cost $2,000 to $3,000 more per month for that feature. Automatic feeding systems add $100 to $200 per month for that feature. Do you need a lower weight? Can you live with a lower weight capacity scale? Heavier items typically are going UPS or FedEx that may have a scale, or you could buy scales from your office supply store for a fraction of the cost of the meter vendors. Are the features in the current mailing system being utilized? Mail accounting, custom weighing, conveyor, stacker, special services. Can online postage be an option versus low volume postage meters? 20% postage savings by these online postage systems, and parcels can be expanded to UPS and FedEx for processing. And if you have 10 locations, these enterprise versions make a lot of sense. So what online postage, if you're not comfortable with it, is basically you print postage onto sheets. Someone logs into a website. It's typically a subscription model. You can print on postage stamp sheets. You can put directly on the envelope, or you can get label printers from the vendor. 95% of the industry will just use the stamp sheets from the vendor because nobody knows how to feed an envelope through their printer typically, and it's too expensive to have these printers at every site or with every user. Or you can print 4x6 shipping labels. You can print them to regular paper and just tape them on. You can use label loops, or you can buy Avery label stock and just print them directly on the label to peel and stick. Inexpensive compared to postage meters. Online postage costs $10 to $30 per month per location. Cloud-based, can be accessed from any device, easy to deploy, visibility to the history. Like with postage meters, you only know that someone filled their meter for $500. Especially at the low end, most people don't have an enterprise visibility to what every person processed. With this online postage, you know every single piece of mail that someone did with full visibility. Some systems can handle UPS, FedEx, and DHL, and significant postage savings. Look at the postage savings on these. The items, these are with postage meters here, and you get the same 1 ounce postage rate with postage meters and that you do with online postage. But look at the rest of it. All these other classes of mail, Ground Advantage, Priority Mail Express, Certified, you get better rates with online postage than you do with postage meters, and the savings can be significant. This is a weird concept, but in many organizations, it's easier for a company to send a $15 overnight than a 63-cent letter. And the reason for that is most organizations use free carrier tools. They'll use FedEx.com, FedEx Ship Manager, UPS Campus Ship, UPS.com. All their users across all their locations, whether they're working from home or they're working in an office, log into that same web platform to process their shipments. At the end of the month, the corporate gets the corporate gets a consolidated bill for all the transactions that happened, and they already broken out by cost center, and they basically upload that and they pay for all the shipping charges. Now, let's compare that to postage. We work with a lot of like multi-location entities, people that have sometimes tens to hundreds to thousands of locations. Most of those don't have postage equipment at the majority of the sites. So, and their choices to mail things are, do they pay for a postage meter, which is $1,300 to $1,300 per month per location? A lot of them say we don't do the mail volumes to do that. So maybe they look at online systems for $10 to $30 a month. A lot of them don't have that. So they send their people to the post office to buy stamps, and they're paying a 5 to 40% premium on those stamps because they are higher rates than you would get than if you use the online tools. And then, or they courier mail to a hub location. So they send someone for $5 to $15 per pickup to all these different locations to pick up mail, bring it down to a hub, and then have someone there process it because they don't want to put mailing equipment at those locations. There's typically no defined process across an organization. The location determines how mail gets processed based on do they have any technology to print it. And there's almost no visibility of the postage pens because it's so fragmented. Now, the good thing about that is there's new technology that's available called enterprise online postage options, where there can be basically a website that people hit, and it can work in the same way that UPS.com or Campus Ship or FedEx.com work, that everyone can log into one place, print the postage stamps that they need, generate reports where everyone's accounted for, and process just like it's done with UPS or FedEx, making it easy. This can get rid of the majority of the postage meters throughout a company because, that typically can pay for these types of systems with, 60, 70, 80% savings in them because these systems are much less expensive. You get simplicity onboarding new users. You get user activity from a central dashboard. You can manage the billing subscriptions and supplies. You can control the user access. Some systems have single sign-on. You can expand it to UPS and FedEx for real-time rate shopping, and they can have certified with electronic return receipt capacities that are much far superior to anything that are done through meters. So the newest trend, though, is there are platforms that can be one price across an entire enterprise versus having to pay that subscription per location. So someone who has 50 locations that haven't had 50 individual online postage licenses can now have one license that supports the entire organization. It makes it easier to deploy, much less expensive, and the data you're getting is much better. The key that we find to these types of platforms is having a central administrator to it. There's typically companies don't have someone that they've said, we want you as one of your job responsibilities to manage the online postage platform, the enterprise online postage platform. So we've been doing that for our clients with huge success and managing it to make it easy. And you can do these same things yourself, but you need to have a process of, you have to define the requirements of the system, implement the system, train the users, onboard them onto the platform, manage their user access, case and issue management. This is the most important thing. When people have issues, the last thing you want is them calling the mailing vendor who provides the software. You need someone internally who can take over the platform and solve those issues. We have a case management platform that takes care of those things for our clients. We monitor the usage. We do reporting and chargeback on key metrics because you're going to have reporting that itemizes the cost so they can charge back each office and location and user. Quantify the savings, and then there's always expanding and promoting usage to it because there's always acquisitions or new sites or people's leases don't expire into the future. So if you're looking at these types of things, consider having some central administration support because it's just, it makes or breaks the success of the program. So migration planning and implementation. Create an inventory report, make sure it has the correct end dates with all your end of lease dates or end of rental dates for all your equipment. Document the postage spends by location so you can properly right-size it. Understand the features your locations need. Compare pricing and features with multiple vendors. Order the new solutions, validate the solutions are installed, remove the current systems, validate that the postage is recovered, and make sure locations across the enterprise are covered. We recommend having ongoing visibility to this and control and we think it's important to keep a master list or database of all of your mailing equipment, the contract terms, the spends, the invoices, and balances. We manage this in a web platform for our clients. You can manage it on spreadsheets if you want. You could do this yourself. It's just you need to have some place where all this data resides. Because there's ongoing right sizing. Mail volumes are going to continue to go down. Solutions will need to be resized. We're averaging 56% savings in this. You can do the same thing with a proper oversight. The invoices need validation. We have recovered $19 million for our clients in wrong billing. And if you're not looking at the details of the invoices and comparing it to your master database or spreadsheet, you're going to find overspends. Postage management. You wouldn't believe when you return a postage meter and you're no longer using it, very few customers remember to go collect the funds that are sitting in that postage meter in the account, or fill out the postage refund request form and get the money back. We've recovered $13 million for our clients in dormant postage funds. And it happens, sometimes it's from meters that have been returned. Sometimes someone's changed vendors from one vendor to another and they didn't know they had to get the money back. Sometimes it's because people just have overfunding inside active meters where there's tens of thousands of dollars in meters that people didn't know about. Location support. To make sure your offices have the best mailing options available, you need to manage future migrations. 2026 is another part of the migration, and 2027 is another part of this migration. And then to offset future price increases, 18 to 38% increases over the last 19 months, and it's going up to 55% with this upcoming rate increase. So this is what we do. We manage the largest fleet of mailing equipment in the world, 192,000 pieces of mailing equipment. Our average client has saved $1.9 million. Our average equipment savings is 56%. And we've recovered $24 million in lost postage, vendor overcharges, and fees. We have 241 years of experience in this. We have the only comprehensive web-based tools that work across all vendors, provide postage, equipment, and notes and activity details all in one place. And we help clients manage this, which we think provides a time savings assistance. Our clients are the largest organizations in every industry, and then we have some smaller companies that have, that have needs as well. So it's not just the big, but we have, as an example, 2 clients in the Fortune 10, multiple clients in the Fortune, like I would say 70% of our clients, 80% of our clients are in the Fortune 5,000. But then we have other like small local agencies and organizations that probably wouldn't fit that model. For any client, we'll do a no-cost analysis that will show you all your mail spends across your organization. We'll build a population report of your equipment, document all your postage counts, look at any of your outsourced spends that you care for us to look at. We'll show you all the savings that exist inside your portfolio or your spend. And then if you make a decision to move forward, we'll go execute on those savings for you. We'll present all savings for you for approval. We don't do anything without your approvals. We manage it in our web dashboard, and we provide ongoing support. This is all we do, so we can be really good at it, we feel. So I want to open it up for any questions. I know I spoke fast in this one. I had a lot to cover as far as 2 different major initiatives from the Postal Service, and I want to open it up to any questions. We have these types of webinars on a frequent basis. We're going to have a couple more if you think on this particular topic over the next 2 months. If anyone from your organization would benefit from it, feel free to pass on the invite. And we just believe that education is the key to success in reducing costs in this category. So let me open it up to see if there's any questions.
Thanks, Adam. Hello, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. I wanted to remind you that there are 2 different ways to ask questions. You can raise your hand and we'll unmute you to ask your question, or you can type your question in the chat box. While I wait for some questions to come in, I just wanted to point you to our various social media links there. so that you can check those out. We obviously post on our socials on a more frequent basis than we do have webinar sessions. As Adam mentioned, we are having 2 more sessions for this topic on June 14th and June 28th. Both of those are at 1 p.m. as well. So feel free to join us for those if you want to hear any of the information again or anything like that. There is a link at the top of our website where you can register. So now I will see what questions we have. So it looks like our first question is, what is your opinion on the new Ground Advantage program?
I think it's a great option for the Postal Service. They had like 3 really fragmented services. A lot of people use first class package service, and that was really popular and is probably the fastest growth segment of the Postal Service. But it only goes up to, 60, almost 16 ounces, 15.99 ounces. So, and then there was a bunch of other ground services that people didn't really know about or use, like Parcel Select as an example. And there was no way for people to figure out how to streamline that. So now there's one class, USPS ground. It compares with UPS and FedEx ground in some of its service objectives. The costs are really good. It has lightweight options by the ounce that nobody else has, which will still keep basically the first class package service engaged as it was before. So, and it's a savings over priority mail for those people who are sending priority mail items for heavier items. They now have a slightly slower cost that's viable for them to use. So I think it's a total win from the post office. I don't know why it took them so long to figure this out, and I think it's a great thing for everybody.
All right, it looks like we have another question. I'm getting messages from my vendor that I need to switch my meters before the meter migration date. Is that true?
So we're getting a lot of different feedback on this meter migration from our clients, that they're getting hit with different vendor requests, having people say that you need to update your machine now. You do not have to update your machine now. You can wait until June 30th of 2024 you're in compliance if you're up to June 30th of 2024. And there's also a slight grace period for the second half of the year if you needed it, where the machines will be out of compliance but still operational. So there's no rush to it. The important thing is to get an inventory to understand when your leases expire, how much postage you're doing, and to make sure that you're doing the right level of right sizing of your equipment, because the vendors will come at you basically trying to get deals on this and trying to get you to update as quickly as you can when it's not required.
All right, it looks like we have another question. What do you suggest as USPS mailing options for those working from home?
So for USPS mailing options, if you're in an organization that has, I would consider if the enterprise web postage options are great for people who work from home, whether it's a single site online postage or whether it's part of an enterprise piece, because then someone who works from home has the option to print a 63-cent stamp, which today they really don't, and it forces them to go to the post office and buy stamps or send mail to somebody else. So I would say the online postage tools are going to be your best win for people who work from home. And now that those can have one platform that supports an entire enterprise from one license, it can be a real win from a cost perspective. It doesn't have to be like a cost disadvantage to have lots of users working from home.
All right. Well, if there are no further questions, I would love to thank everybody for joining us today. Please fill out the survey that will appear at the conclusion of the webinar, and be sure to check our social media pages to find helpful information from us on a more frequent basis. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.